Technically, I'm not doing remote schooling.
Okay, you're schooling from home.
Yeah, the situation, 2 weeks to the end of session, then
Okay.
it became remote, but technically it's supposed to be face-to-face schooling. But the beauty of it is that the reason why it was quite easy for UCL and a lot of schools in the UK, and I'm sure maybe also in the United States and the likes of Singapore, to make the transition is because they already had a system in place to make things like that happen. Even so, people had an option to school from home. And in addition to what he said about what needs to change, I think we need to pay attention to developing our people's capacity. And this has to go beyond ad hoc ideas that things that happened at the villa where you host Mark Zuckerberg and things like that. We need to build that into our educational system. We need to normalize building entrepreneurs. We need to build a culture where people are allowed to fail and they don't get carried by EFCC. One of the things that I saw recently on Twitter was an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley sharing an experience where they had lost about $60 to $80 million. But that's not the story. The real story was one of my friends replied the thread where this person was speaking to say that if this thing in Nigeria, now EFCC said go they talk this story. And it speaks to our culture, how we don't thrive on failure. We see failure as a finality. And one of the things that happen in Silicon Valley, which is like one of the most thriving places in the world as we speak, if not the most thriving place actually, is that failure is part of the norm. Failure is part of the culture. A lot of people that are very, very successful at building one thing or the other that they are known for, they actually could have they more often than not have more stories of failure. So what Nigeria really has to pay attention to is normalizing this. The world, for me, the biggest thing that has changed is that no change actually happened. We were supposed to be here all along. A lot of the conferences and meetings that happened didn't need to happen. A lot of the times that I traveled from Abuja to Lagos to go and be on TV, or travel from Lagos to Abuja to go and be on TV, I didn't have to. A lot of people that have to travel miles to go do certain jobs. I'm sure by now a lot of these companies have realized it was a waste of people's time, 2-3 hours on the road. So if there was an opportunity in this crisis, of course, it's really sad. Millions of people affected, the millions of people that are, the hundreds of thousands of people that are already dead. It's that there are a lot of things that we should have done a lot longer before now that the coronavirus has now more or less forced upon us. And I think that we should be careful about saying what will change and what will not change. If you asked anyone what was going to happen last year in 2020, nobody would have predicted it. Of course, there were people talking about economies and the world being prepared for a pandemic, but nobody said precisely, explicitly that in 2020, this is what's going to happen. So if there's anything at all, is the human resilience, our ability to actually evolve and our ability to come out of situations like this. And then you can look back 5 years from now, you start to wonder, did coronavirus really happen?
Okay. JJ, let me come to you right now and ask you the question about how you think perhaps the youthful population in the country, Nigeria is a youthful country, how the youthful population will embrace this new normal. How can they navigate from the old normal to the new normal, having in mind that there is an uneven digital access? There are opportunities that will come with digital access, but there are also problems, so that the problems at the end of the day are not modern, the solutions that we get. And I hope you understand my question.
To get people to, not just the young people, also the general population, to get them to embrace a new norm, you have to stop saying do this or do that. You have to create the enabling environment for that. And so the first thing is you increase your capability to do that. The second thing is you provide the opportunities for that. And then the third thing is you provide the motivation for that. If you make all of those three factors available, people will automatically switch to the new normal. I can give an example. It's not enough, for instance, to say, don't run through the express road, right? If you haven't built a pedestrian bridge. And then if you built a pedestrian bridge, if you don't build one that a person living with some disability can use, then you've not given that person the opportunity to do that.
You're talking to us here in Abuja. There are limited bridges.
Yeah, I speak to Nigeria specifically. Like they say they built a
Yes.
pedestrian bridge and people cannot, I mean, even for when they build, there are people that are not able to even access it. So it's not enough to complain that people are not taking up a new opportunity or they're not paying attention or they're not interested. If you're trying to change people's behavior towards another level, towards a certain expectation of change, you have to increase their capability to do that. That's human capital development. And a lot of the speakers have already insinuated that. Then the other thing is you have to create the opportunity. One of the ways of creating the opportunity, for instance, is to, he was speaking about access to broad internet, to broadband. You have to get out of the way of laying fiber optics across the country. I like that Ekiti, Katsina, Kaduna has removed the cost of right of way completely. These are things that really, really have to happen if we want to do that and make sure that it spreads across the country. That's creating the opportunity. The motivation is the motivation automatically kind of happens sometimes when people see people like Leo, they see and they see all the big people making it in that space. They are automatically motivated. But motivation would be wasted if there are no opportunities, and it will be virtually impossible if they don't have the capability to do that. A lot of these people that we see on our streets that are not able to join the formal economy, the Almajiris that were mentioned earlier, they see the good things of life. They want the good things of life, but they don't have the capability to access those good things of life.
That was what Leo said earlier. It's about lifestyle, that we're transiting to a life of lifestyle.
So there's a role. We have to be intentional about it. We have to ask ourselves, how do we put... So one of the things that they say about Nigeria is our population. Nigeria has 200 million. Depending on who you speak to and what time of the day you ask them, they give you all sorts of numbers. But one thing that doesn't often get said about that number is that number doesn't have capability. Anybody that runs a company in Nigeria will tell you their biggest challenge is not really and truly power. Their biggest challenge is finding the right people to fill the places that they want to fill. One of my friends just set up a company, a media company. She's hired people and now they've come into the company and it's looking like they cannot even do the things that they claimed they were able to do. So we need to start from there. And then when we start from there, we need to create the opportunities for that. We need to build the culture for that. We need to build a mentoring system for that. We need to build the right tax system for that. The tax system in Nigeria is not good for this kind of industry because government is looking at it like a rent system where normally the rent system of commodities like petroleum and things like that is you wait for people to go and make the money and then you tax them. But this digital industry doesn't work like that. You actually find a way to make them thrive. You find a way to make them grow. And then when it happens, you just make your money. It's not, I can't even say it's like blood money because blood money is a myth anyway. It's like a money tree. You can't imagine how much the US government makes from the likes of Apple and Amazon and Google and the likes. But they had to, first of all, allow for them to thrive. They had to, first of all, create the environment for them to do that through all sorts of subsidies that people would never admit, but the subsidies come in different ways, and that's what we must do. Create the capability for people to be able to do these things, create the opportunities for them to do it, and then put incentives in place for them to be motivated to do it. And then everything will just happen. It's easier to make people do something when you create the environment for them to do it, rather than just scream and say, do this and do that.
Okay. Omojuwa, over to you, JJ. 30 seconds. It starts counting now. Okay, JJ, you need to unmute your audio.
I'd say,
okay, yeah.
In closing, we need to drag government along. It's quite clear that government is very much behind when it comes to this conversation. It's very impressive that we have the right people doing the right things. We need to continue to drag government along and hope that eventually government policy and government action and the political culture will help the industry thrive.
Okay, thanks, JJ.